People, thank you all for coming back and all that good stuff that I always say, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, let me get right into this thing. Let me start off by saying happy Kwanzaa, Christmas, Hanukkah, whatever it is that you celebrate out there is coming up around the corner. And for many of you that don't listen when these things first drop, you probably will be listening to it after all of those things have expired. Hopefully, well, I shouldn't say expired. That's a bad. Anyway, you get what I mean. Hopefully, you all listen to it before the new year starts. But if you didn't, hey, happy 2022 to you. If not that, even though I'll probably drop another couple episodes, at least one before the new year. So I'll be wishing you all a happy new year and talking about New Year's dating options and all of that stuff. Hey, y'all, it's cuffing season. That's another thing I should talk about next week, but that's a whole nother issue for a whole nother time. Well, actually, it's not for another time because cuffing season actually has, I think it's already started. I don't know. I'll look at that and get more details later as to what all of that means. Let me make a mental note of that. Actually, I'm typing it. Yeah. But, the thing about it is when I think about holidays and I think about this holiday season, the first thing that comes to my mind are gifts. And I remember when me and Reggie, yeah, that Reggie, we were talking about gifts in last year's episode, last year, which speaks to how long we've been on. We were talking about Christmas and all of that good stuff. And yeah. And so, yeah, we were talking about gifts. And during that episode, I was telling a story about a friend of mine who had, who was going through all of this anxiety while he was trying to find a gift on Christmas Eve for his wife. Now, he probably shouldn't have been waiting until Christmas Eve to get a gift for his wife, but I think it speaks to how he didn't want to do it in the first place and then felt compelled to do it because God forbid he go back home without a gift and nothing to give her on Christmas Day, blah, blah, blah. But that's the thing about procrastination. You procrastinate because it's something that you don't want to do in the first place. And that's the reason that you keep putting it off. In this case, for him, it was buying a Christmas gift. But yeah, mm, that's an example why I don't like the whole Christmas, the whole idea of gift giving and all of that stuff, because too many people are put in a position of either having to buy a gift that they hope their mate will like or faking excitement about a gift that they'll receive. Either way, it doesn't make much sense to me. And if you're with someone, why don't you just get them gifts during the year? What makes this particular day more special in terms of gift giving or even gift receiving than any other day? I say, give a gift when you feel like giving a gift, regardless of if it's Christmas or any other day. Then that way you'll actually be free to celebrate Christmas or whatever you celebrate for, say, its true meaning. How about that? For the novel concept. Last I checked, Christmas was supposed to be reserved for the celebration of the birth of Christ. But I digress. Okay, so thinking about this gift stuff had me thinking about the five love languages. I have no idea how these particular love languages got so popular, but they are, and everybody is familiar with them. So I don't have to really go into much detail in explaining them. But with that said, I will list off what they are: words of affirmation, physical touch, receiving gifts, quality time, and acts of service. And there are actually sites that you can go to that will let you take a test to determine which are the most and least important to you. Now, me myself, I think that with some introspection, you know where they rank in your life without having to take a quiz. But I guess that's just me. But and even though I'm not knocking the hustle of the quiz, I'm knocking the hustle of people that take the quiz. But even as I say that, I actually took the quiz like years and years ago, and I don't remember what I said, but I feel like I know myself well enough now to be able to rank them on my own without having to take a quiz. So what I'll do for the rest of the time before I get to the end of the show, when I go into that other segment that I usually go into, and you'll find out in a minute if you don't already know, if you're a regular listener, You already know what I'm going to do at the end of the episode. But what I'll do for the rest of this time until we get to that is I'll tell you how these things rank to me. And I'll do that while tearing down the other love languages in the process. So with that in mind, instead of my starting at the top, I'll start at the bottom. And the reason I'm starting at the bottom for me is because coming in dead last is what I just talked about, which is receiving gifts. It'd be weird for me to like bash the whole idea of giving gifts for Christmas and then me talk about I want to receive gifts as my number one. But no, it is like number five. And not only is it number five, I would venture to say that shoot, of the five, receiving gifts is like number nine. So they're like three slots of nothing in between, or four slots of nothing in between number four and giving gifts. And it's interesting that that's the only material thing on this list of the five love languages, which also says something that if your love language is materialism, I know we refer to this as the no judgment zone, but yeah. Anyway, and what's also interesting is that when I bring that up to people, the whole thing about how materialistic it is, that gifts is your love language, most of the time the people push back by saying that it doesn't have to be a big expensive gift. But see, those are the same people that'll break up with you if you give them like a handmade card or something. So is it really the thought that counts? Yeah, okay. The thought with some cash behind it. But again, that's me sounding really judgy. But myself, I spent way too much time in my dating experiences trying to figure out what to buy someone for Christmas, or faking that I like something, or faking that I like something that I couldn't have cared less about when it was given to me. As a matter of fact, of those two things, I don't really know which is worse. Faking that I like something or stressing out having to find something for somebody and I don't really know what they want. But with all of that said, I hate faking. I just hate faking in general, but really I hate faking about something that I don't really like, or faking about something that I don't really even care about. And since I'm not the type of person that drops hints like, ooh, I wish I had me a new pair of Jordans, wink, wink. When I'm dating someone, they really don't have any idea what to get me, which makes it worse. My whole thing is, and I would think most people will be at this stage in life if you're fortunate. I mean, there are some people struggling on hard times. And if you're struggling on hard times that hard, I mean, just the fact that you're requesting gifts in the first place would be kind of weird. But I'm fortunate in life, blessed in life, that if I want something, I'll go get it. And if it's something that I can't get, the odds are that the person that I'm dating can't get it for me either. So, you know, so yeah. Or if she can get it, she been lying to me about her net worth. But yeah, the point is there are things that, and I don't even know what an example would be, or something that I would want that I can't afford to get just because I have simple tastes like that. So if I want something, I'll get it. I don't drop hints. And that leaves people guessing, I guess, what to get me. And as a result, I've gotten a whole bunch of crap over a whole lot of years that I didn't like, didn't care about. Yeah, so it is what it is. And even though I go through this whole process and stuff like that, where somebody's trying to figure out what to get me, and even in spite of the fact that I'm constantly saying, yo, I don't want anything. It's like the women that I'm dating or the women that I have dated. It's like they don't believe me. Like I'm just talking trash, like trying to do some kind of bait and switch, like I'm sandbagging or something. So with all of that said, I guess I would say that it's probably worse. It's worse to fake liking something than to be going out and trying to find something for somebody that you have no idea what they want. And God forbid if you give them a gift card. Then the thing with getting a gift card is if you get them a gift card, it have to be for an amount that would probably be more than you would spend for the actual gift. because the price obviously is on the gift card. So you can't buy, like when you buy somebody a gift, you can buy somebody something cheap, like down on Candler Road or whatever, Old National or something like that. And for people that don't live in Atlanta, you have no idea what the significance of those streets. But if you drive up and down those streets in Atlanta, you can probably find some good quality counterfeit stuff. So, and of course, shoot, you don't have to tell her that it's fake. Plus, why would you tell her it's fake? That would kind of defeat the whole purpose. So, but if you get a gift card, if I get $100 gift card, that means I wasn't gonna spend $100 on the gift for her, whoever her, she is, or whatever. Anyway, so I say all that to say that receiving gifts of the five love languages, that's absolutely last on my list. And that brings me to acts of service. Actually, there's no connection there, but still, acts of service is the next thing I want to talk about, because acts of service would come in 4 out of the top 5. And the thing about acts of service is, are the thing about acts of services is that, aren't they just gifts of a different kind? Like, if you go fix your woman's like leaky faucet or something like that, that's an act of service. But isn't that also a gift? If your woman comes over to your house and cooks you a nice dinner, it's an act of service. But isn't that a gift? So basically, whoever created these 5 love languages, and I hope they got rich from it because everybody knows about them, but whoever created these acts of services, basically, they just found a way, and I think it's kind of lazy, that they just took gifts and put them in 2 different categories. And for that reason, acts of service is number 4 on my list. In thinking about it, I would imagine that acts of service probably would rank higher amongst women, since they're always defining what a man's job is. And so men have all of these handyman things that is a man's job. So those things fall into acts of service. To me, acts of service / gifts. And so therefore, yeah, I would imagine that acts of service would be bigger to a woman than a man. Now, with that said, forgive me if I'm generalizing or stereotyping, but it is what it is. But yeah, so basically, receiving gifts are physical gifts to me, and acts of service is more intangible gifts. But this, to me, is still gifts, and that's why they rank at the bottom too. Number 3 for me, third from the bottom or third from the top, words of affirmation. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm actually not going to bash words of affirmation. I love a little positive reinforcement, and I would imagine that everyone does, but I don't love it more than the top 2. The thing about words of affirmation is that you can bestow words of affirmation on somebody all day, but eventually it's going to get to the point where you kind of have to back it up with something else. Whereas a gift can kind of stand on its own, or act of service can kind of stand on its own. You can affirm somebody with words or whatever all day and night, but eventually, if you don't have any back that up, those words are going to ring hollow. It's kind of like when I talk to women who are online dating, and one of the things that they complain about is that guys greet them with, "Hi, beautiful." Seems like beautiful is the way that men talk to women in greeting them, especially if you're dating online, which is exactly what I just said. But even though, I would think it would be nice for someone to hear that they're beautiful, but when that's what they're coming with every day and nothing more, I can understand why it would kind of get a little numb to women after a while. So it's a word of affirmation, but you need something to back it up. And that's primarily why it falls under number 3, because it doesn't stand on its own. So love language, but you need some action. Anyway, so skip that. Let's get to the top 2, and let's start with number 2. Number 2 is physical touch. For some reason in my life, I didn't appreciate this one, when I was younger. But now that I am at a certain age in my life, I really like physical touch. And I'm not talking about sex, you perverts, even though I'm not mad at that either. Don't get me wrong. I'm talking about all of the contact that happens outside of sexual contact. Excuse me, outside of the sexual context. When I was younger, I didn't see the appeal in hugs, cuddling, holding hands. I guess cuddling is a prelude to sex. Well, not really. I don't know. But I didn't really see the appeal in any of that. I remember I had a girlfriend back in the day, and this was back when I was in my 20s, and she was a hand holder. And it would drive me crazy when she would grab my hand every time we were out somewhere. And it was like so tough for me because when you're walking hand in hand with somebody down the street, you know, and other people are coming from the other direction, you have to turn to the side and stuff to get them through. And it's just like it's just like you're a real wide person and you're constantly turning, trying to navigate to get around other people. It was a hassle. But now it's like, shoot, now it's like I'm a different dude. It's like weird. I'll grab somebody's hand or somebody will grab mine, and I don't think anything of it. I think it's sweet. All of that stuff that just used to kind of make me cringe a little bit. It was like back in the day when somebody would touch me outside of a sexual way, I'd almost like snatch away from them, like, what are you doing? I don't know, but now that I'm older, I'm the complete opposite. I'm like all into that foolish, well, it's not foolishness, but I'm all into that stuff. And I have no idea whatsoever what the turning point was. It wasn't like I had some kind of epiphany in the middle of the night or some woman broke my heart because I snatched my hand away from her. I have no idea what changed in my whatever, in my maturity or romantic maturity or whatever it is, but I cannot point to when it happened. I cannot point to how it happened, and I cannot point to what led to it. But yeah, now I want to say I'm touchy feely. That's a bit much, but I don't mind it the way I used to. So it's funny. I have a friend that always gives me grief about my hugs, and she's like, "You're the worst hug I ever knew." And I was like, and I'm like, yo, I hadn't had to practice. Don't knock me. But with all of that said, I grew up to not only appreciate it, I grew up to actually crave it. So look at me now. I'm all grown up. But yeah, it's so weird. Physical touch is a big deal. And that's why it's number two. And which leads to number one, which is quality time. And let me be clear, quality time does not mean that I need to be in somebody's face 24/7. That's quantity time, not quality time. Quality time is spent enjoying each other's company, regardless of what you're doing. It's not just wasted time out of obligation. There is nothing worse, again, flashing back to my younger days when I would be hanging out with the fellas. We'd be having a good time, and I'd have to get up and leave because of some kind of weird obligation or something I had to do with my girlfriend or something like that. So I go home and then I be out with her thinking about what the fellas were doing and stuff like that while I'm at this thing that I'd rather not be at. Yeah, so yeah, so that's not really quality time. That's not really quality time at all. Yeah, quality time is where you want to be. And I really like the idea of true quality time. And really, when you break down quality time, this is the beauty of it. And this is really why it's number one. If your quality time is on point, you're going to get some words of affirmation during the quality time. You're going to get some services acted upon during quality time. And you're going to get some physical touch, most likely, during that quality time. So that's the real beauty in quality time. You're getting three for the price of one. Yeah. So you can't beat that. Because I tell you what, if you're spending quality time and you're not getting those other two, then something's wrong. Well, those other three, yeah, words of affirmation, acts of service, and physical touch. Yeah. All of that is part of the quality time process. Yeah. So by far and away. If anybody doesn't have quality time as number one, you really need to rethink your list, especially after what I just laid out for you. And like I always like to say, you're welcome. I'm interested in knowing what yours are. Hit me up. Let me know what's your five? What's the order of your five? Because the thing about it is, every time I talk to someone about it, they have a different order and have different reasons for the order. I guess that's what makes us unique. Okay. Anyway, enough of that. Now let me get to the end of the show. Couple things I need to mention. I hadn't ended the show like this in a while, but I have to once again, because as I was going through my life reading and all of that stuff, I saw that the Kango Kid of UTFO has passed. If you don't know who UTFO is, they're famous for the song Roxanne, Roxanne, the first Roxanne, Roxanne. You know, there were like 857 different versions of Roxanne. And I really did like most of them. Like real Roxanne, Roxanne Shante. Roxanne Shante was the most famous of the other Roxannes that came out, because it was like 757 versions of Roxanne, and there were like 178 different people that did versions of them. So go figure that. It was a Roxanne coming out every other week. But UTFO started the whole thing with the Roxanne, Roxanne, I Want to Be Your Man, and all of that stuff. And if you're not familiar with anything that I'm talking about with the Roxannes or UTFO, I can't help you. Obviously, you're not a hip hop head. And if you're not a hip hop head, yeah, I got nothing for you. I'm talking about real hip hop, not like somebody who's like 18 years old who thinks the Migos invented hip hop. Nah, I got no time for you. Even though I did go see the Migos in concert, but they were with Drake. So anyway, enough about that. Kango Kid was 55 years old, and Kango Kid died of colon cancer. Now, I try really hard to not come across as lecturing people, even though I come across as lecturing people. But 55 is too young. It is too young. I personally got my first colonoscopy about 3 months ago, as everyone in this demographic of this show should. You either should be preparing for your colonoscopy. If you're listening to this, you should be preparing for your colonoscopy. You should have gotten your colonoscopy, or you should be recovering from your colonoscopy, one of the two. And the thing about it is, it's not even a big deal. Now, mind you, they give you this laxative stuff to drink that'll like flush everything out of your body, including some of your organs. But still, the procedure itself takes minutes and you're back home. It's not a big deal at all. And if it could have like saved this man's life, 55 years old, I tell you what, like I said, I'm not going to lecture, but I am going to like ask you all once again, if you're not going to the doctor, go to the doctor, please. That's not lecturing. That's me practically begging. So that's the one thing. Shout out to Kango Kid, and the memory of Kango Kid. That sucks. 55 years old. Okay, so let me get up off that. So, like I alluded to earlier in the episode, there are usually two ways that I might end the show. One is unfortunately talking about somebody's passing, and then the other one is talking about a divorce. Since I hadn't covered either of these in a minute, I guess I'll take them both. And this one is about the divorce. It's funny because I was talking to a friend of mine, or a special friend, as Reggie says. Yeah, that Reggie. And she told me that Megan Good and Devon Franklin are divorcing. Now, if you're Black and you're of a certain age, you know who Megan Good is. I mean, she'll never be Meryl Streep, and she'll never be as popular as Julia Roberts. But, you know, the brothers and sisters know her. I think she's on this show called Harlem now. and she was married to Devon Franklin, who's one of these nouveau pastors. And when I say nouveau pastors, I don't mean that in a condescending way, like he's crooked or anything, but he's a pastor. That's his thing. And when they got married, it, it was kind of a big deal. And yeah, I don't really know what to say about it other than it was a big deal. But they got married 9 years ago. And when I say 9 years ago, usually I don't talk about people getting divorced until they've either gotten to 20 years or they're bumping up against it. But in this case, I mentioned this because this was one of those that kind of surprised me a little bit. Like I said, they only made it 9 years. And I guess I shouldn't be surprised considering this segment usually is about how I'm not surprised because people are getting divorced all the time after having been together for years. But I guess part of my surprise in this case was that one, he was a pastor. And it's not like pastors don't have issues in their marriages. I just think of pastors and quote unquote first ladies. I think of them just like grinning and bearing it through their crappy marriages, unlike other people who will just bail at the first sign of trouble. You know, just seems like they would put forth more of an effort. And it's not to say that they didn't put forth an effort. It's just I don't know. I don't know. I guess another reason that it kind of surprised me a little bit was because their marriage was part of their brand, I guess. They both had careers. Like I said, Megan Good is on that TV show Harlem, and he's a pastor, but together their brand was their marriage. They'd written books and had done speaking engagements and things like that about marriage and all of this stuff. So it's kind of surprising that, and I guess it shouldn't be again, but still, it is a little bit to me with them in particular. But I guess those that don't know teach. And even though they were talking about marriage and giving people tips on how to make their marriages work and all of that stuff, yeah, yeah, doesn't mean it was bad advice. It just obviously wasn't advice that they could take themselves. And plus, I didn't hear about any tension in their marriage or anything like that. Now, with that said, what does that even mean? Considering I'm not like really pop culture ish to the point where even if they were having drama, that I'd be like my ear would be to the streets, hearing it, listening for it, or whatever. So they could have been having tensions that other people were made aware of that just hadn't filtered down to me yet. But I don't know. So I wasn't following all that closely or closely at all. That one just kind of hit different, you know? You know what I'm saying? So it is what it is. That hit different. And also for a lesser known audience, people that watch ESPN, they know that Jalen Rose, former basketball player and now ESPN personality, he married another ESPN personality, Molly Karam, and they're getting divorced. Even though they weren't married that long, still, that marriage was one that I was actually rooting for whatever that's worth. Yeah, I don't know. Most of the time I come on these joints and I point out these failed marriages and stuff, and they're usually about people that I don't really care much about. I mean, and not that I dislike them or anything like that. It's just that I don't think about them until I see something saying that they're breaking up. But I don't know. These two relationships, even though I didn't know a lot about Megan Good and Devon Franklin because I wasn't looking for marital counseling or anything like that. So I really didn't pay much attention to them, but obviously I was aware of them if I spent all of this time talking about them. And then for Jalen Rose and Molly Karam, it's kind of how I start my day, sports. But oh well, it is what it is. I shouldn't be surprised. I mean, I don't know. I started talking about these divorces in the first place. So yeah. And I started talking about them to show my lack of surprise. And now look at me all surprised. Oh well, that's all I got. Hey, I just want to say to everybody out there, if nobody else tells you, I'll tell you, I love you. And even people that I'm having conflict with right now, I love you too. Reggie loves you too. Reggie loves everybody. Reggie does chakras and meditates now and looks at crystals. I guess you look at crystals. I don't really know what you do with the crystals, but whatever you do with the crystals, Reggie does it. Damn it. Reggie, speaking of which, come say bye to the people, man. Reggie. See, Reggie came out for that 99th episode and used so many words. I guess he's out of words again now, but Reggie will be back. That's my guy. For everybody, if you listen to this before Christmas, I wish you a Merry Christmas, Kwanzaa, or Hanukkah. I honestly don't know when any of those days are. So if I already missed it, I apologize. If you're listening to the show after any of these events have passed, happy belated, whatever you celebrate. If you're listening to this before the new year, hey, you got a few more days. You better get it in. 2022, it's got to be better than 2020. 2021 was a little bit better than 2020, right? Hopefully. And if you're listening to this after the new year, happy new year. Whoop, whoop, and all of that. So on that note, I think I'm done here. Goodbye.